Hey everybody, welcome back to BobkeTV. A lot of questions that I get are regarding how I turned professional, how I became a professional cyclist. And when I started, it was a lot less popular and there were not that many cyclists out there, and very different than what young riders today face when they're turning pro. And nowadays there's so many good amateur teams. There's so many good pro continental and continental level teams in the United States that any decent rider, young rider, junior or late teens, early 20s, will have lots of fast guys to train with, lots of races in most communities. And when you're proficient in those, you just go progressively to a higher level. And if you're really exceptionally good, you can race for a world tour team. And BMC has a lot of young Americans on it. It's pretty obvious to those teams who the best amateurs are in the United States, but that was not the case when I was just starting out. And I started a little bit later in life than most professional cyclists, even in my era. When I started out, Greg LeMond was a big star. He, I think, started racing when he was 13 or 14. George Mount was one of the top pros at the time. Jock Boyer, the first American, had already done the Tour de France for the first time. Jock Boyer, that was in 1981, if I'm not mistaken. And in Colorado, there was a group of incredibly talented bike racers that eventually would become the stars of American cycling. Davis Finney, Andy Hampton, Ron Kiefel, Jeff Pierce, a lot of the future stars to come. In Northern California, where I started riding bikes, there were a number of top professionals. George Mount was from the East Bay. Greg LeMond, even though he was from in between Carson City and Reno, Nevada, it was the same district, the same racing district. Northern California and Nevada was the racing district. And Southern California was a different district entirely. So the NorCal, Nevada riders competed against themselves on a regular basis. So Northern California was a real hotbed of American cycling at that time. Michigan was strong, Florida, New York, the Eastern Seaboard had a big tradition. And so, and as I mentioned before, obviously Boulder, Colorado has produced an incredible number of great athletes. Nowadays, the best riders come from all over the place. TJ Van Garderen, I believe, grew up in Montana. Andrew Talansky, if I'm not mistaken, grew up in Florida. Not very mountainous, but he's a great climber. Of course, Taylor Finney is a part of the dynastic succession of American cycling, being the son of Connie Carpenter, gold medalist, Davis Finney, an all-out All-American legend. And so for Taylor, it would have been wherever he grew up, to have the parents that he does have, he would have found his way into professional cycling if that's what he wanted to do. In my era, you had to be pretty lucky as well as good. And as luck would have it, Mike Neal, one of the best coaches and a man who remains the only director sportif to guide a team to victory in a Grand Tour, that's from America, an American team, is Mike Neal. He's from Northern California also, and he was the first, if not one of the first, Americans to turn pro in Europe for a European professional team. He raced in Italy as a professional after competing in the Olympic Games. And when he retired from professional cycling, he came back to Northern California and remains one of the top cycling coaches in the country and in the world. He was hired by 7-Eleven in 1985 to guide the team as they transitioned from concentrating on the '84 Olympic Games in Los Angeles and then racing in Europe full time. So when they hired Mike to guide the team through their European racing and have a base in Europe with the hope of eventually being competitive at the Tour de France and the other Grand Tours and the Classics and the Worlds on the professional level, it was Mike Neal that was the director sportif to guide the team. And he had been coaching me for the last couple of years from when I started. And so when there was an opening for the '85 Giro, Mike asked if I'd like to do the Giro. That was on a Tuesday. If I'm not mistaken, that Giro started on the Friday, and so I flew immediately to Italy. And my first professional race was the Tour of Italy in 1985, which I do not recommend debuting as a pro any Grand Tour. You should at least try some of the smaller races beforehand. But be that as it may, the rest, as they say, is history. But without the 7-Eleven team, without Mike Neal, without growing up in Northern California, I doubt that I would have ever found my way into professional cycling. So a little bit of luck and a little bit of determination, and the rest is pure providence. Thanks a lot for watching these videos. Comments, please comment. And thumbs up are greatly helpful. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at your leisure and get a heads up for when I'm doing these videos and what I'm going to be doing them about. To subscribe, click on my face. To buy merchandise, click on the t-shirt icon. Thanks a lot, everybody.